vibrate. Then please let's all stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Amanda, would you take the roll, please?
Councilmember Myers.
Here.
Councilmember Rowe.
Here.
Councilmember Stevens.
Here.
Councilmember Strebe.
Here.
Councilmember Dalby.
Here.
Mayor Lazio.
Here.
Items on the consent agenda. Minutes from regular meeting number 31 on September 20th, 2016 is presented. Canvasser solicitor application for Emily Schlatter for October 5th through November 4th, 2016 to solicit donations through a can drive at local businesses. Your agenda says October 15th. That should be October 5th. Appointment of Brandon Kelly to Utility Workers Sewer Maintenance Department effective on or about October 10th, 2016. Tyler Batterson to Utility Workers Street Maintenance Department effective on or about October 3rd, 2016. And Jackson C. Salters to Probationary Firefighter effective October 5th, 2016. Contract for unleaded gas, ethanol, and diesel fuel by tank wagon delivery. Resolution number 227, 2016, setting October 18th, 2016 as the date for a public hearing on the disposition of city-owned property located at 158 South Fellows. Resolution number 233, 2016, supporting the Home Base Iowa Initiative. Resolution number 236, 2016, approving final pay estimate number 16 for Contract 4, Division 1 of the 2010 Flood Protection Mitigation Project and accepting the work as final and complete. Beer and/or liquor applications for Alpine Inn, 1804 Albia Road with outdoor service area. Patros Garcia, 2804 North Court. Uncle Buck's Bar and Grill, 518 Church Street with outdoor service area. And Bubba Q's, 1110 North Quincy Avenue, all applications pending final inspections.
Move the consent agenda as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Hearing no questions, and take the roll.
Councilmember Myers.
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens.
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe.
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby.
Yes.
We'll move to item C. I need a motion for tonight's approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second. Thank you.
Councilmember Myers.
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens.
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe.
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby.
Yes.
Item D is report from city officers, boards, commissions. I'd like to ask City Administrator Andy Morris to start the reports.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. You may recall from the previous meeting we had, I told you I wanted to, quite frankly, beefing up a little bit the reports from the boards and commissions. It's somewhat of a work session format, although we're not calling it a work session, but these are items, all things being equal, that are either information pieces or pieces of legislation that will be coming to you at the next meeting. So the very first one is listed. You'll see that there is a note about monies that would be set aside for the Fly Iowa event. The city's required to participate in the Fly Iowa event by seeding, coming up with $5,000 in seed money for this event. The city will proffer that money from the airport fund balance. In addition to that, the Fly Iowa organization will also provide $5,000. At the next council meeting, as it's noted, there would be a 15A agreement. Nathan Overberg from Allers Cooney, the outside law firm, is working with the city. He is putting together that agreement that allows the city to put that money forward because there has to be a relationship between the money spent on a private purpose and economic development. So that will be coming to the council at our next meeting in 2 weeks. The next item you see is the goal setting session. Jeff Schott, I've mentioned this previously, from the Institute of Public Affairs, University of Iowa. He'll be conducting a goal setting exercise first with staff and then with council. We went back and looked at our records. I believe this, not Jeff in and of himself, but our records indicate that for about the past 15 to 20 years or so, the city has in fact been undertaking these goal setting exercises. So again, he will meet with staff and then later with the city council in that interval. I don't have the specific dates on me. I'll get that to council. I indicated that at the last meeting in late October. The animal control ordinance, one of the items I want to make mention of this is an item that staff has had some discussion on probably since the spring. And the staff has provided a draft copy to council to consider. I believe that's in your boxes downstairs. It's not in front of you this evening. If you have it in front of you this evening, that's fine. But I purposely did not put it in front of all of you because obviously in the format we're at, I don't want council to make a legislative decision tonight. But the ordinance does clarify a couple of items, and I would like to just outline those briefly, Mayor. One is it clarifies the restraint of animals, dangerous animals, cruelty to animals, and I would argue an updated and enhanced definition section, which was somewhat lacking. The draft ordinance has been sent to Heartland Humane Society. They are reviewing it. We don't have word back from them at this point. We'd like to get some of their input. We are set to bring this back to the meeting on October the 18th, our next meeting. That is subject to not only decision of the council, but also whether or not Heartland Humane Society gets back with us in a timely manner. But our plan is, staff's plan is to bring that back to the meeting on the 18th. If council has objections or anything, I'm certainly at liberty to bring it back at a later date.
Okay. I understand that Councilman Rowe would like to make a comment about that.
Yeah. First of all, I would like to point out that even though given the last couple of weeks worth of issues that came up, especially at the last council meeting, the timing seems rather convenient for this. But again, to echo Mr. Morris's comments, this has been something that we've been looking at for quite some time. We've been doing this in conjunction with Ms. Keith, Officer Williams, Chief McAndrew, and again, Heartland Humane Society is going to have input in this also. This was brought up because, you know, there are several areas in our current city ordinance that are weak, that we have a little bit of a problem in the court system bringing some of these cases through because our current ordinance doesn't really hold any teeth. So hopefully with some of these revisions, we'll be able to shore a little bit of that up while at the same time protecting the lives of animals and keeping them from possible neglectful situations. Also, what the council will notice at the very last page that will be brought up is the addendum or resolution for fee scheduling for animal licensing. This evidently was brought up a couple of years ago and did not pass and is being revisited this time. That it would be two separate charges, one for a spayed and neutered animal, which would remain the current that it is now, and then one for an unspayed, unneutered animal, which would increase to another dollar figure. The goal here is to promote the idea that those animals that aren't being used for breeding purposes, that we get those animals spayed and neutered. That way we don't have unwanted animals going down the streets and ultimately get picked up. I do want to point out in this that we've had a lot of people in the past say that this component here specifically is a money grab, and I will be the first person to admit that there is a revenue component to this. You know, if you do want increased enforcement, sometimes that does come at a little bit of a cost. But the beauty in this is that every citizen of this community that does own an animal has the ultimate ability to control what license fee that they pay. All they do is they make the choice for that. So that's kind of the reason that this is being approached as a whole and what will be seen in the future. So thank you.
Thank you. Be sure as you read that, if you have any comments, get those back to either Joni Keith or to Andy for future comments before we get into the reading of the ordinance. Item number 4, I believe Kevin is going to take that.
Yeah, that's Mr. Mayor, that's correct. There is a developer wishing to apply for certain tax credits on some low to moderate income housing in the community. And at this point, if it's all right with Mayor and the council, would turn it over to Kevin Flanagan, our city planner.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, for some time, I think Landover, Richard Sova is our developer. He's the president of Landover Corporation, has been looking at doing a project in the city. At this point, we are set and ready, and he's going to be putting in for tax credits on the 2017 cycle with IFA for 539 West 4th Street. It's a 52-unit development, and it's a total of about $9.6 million investment in the community, with total tax value turning out to be somewhere around $1.1 or $2 million. There's course, the formula that goes along with that, it's a rather large investment, but they're going to look at, real property as well as costs yearly and income for a Section 42 program under federal tax code. So, but the tax value ended up being about $1.1 or $2 million. Now the ask here is for 4%. It used to be 5% on the tax credits program, but now it's a 4% maximum of a local assistance or incentivizing for the program to get the maximum benefit that you would be allowed under the tax credit allocations. And so for us, that would turn out in this case to be around $390,000. Now our proposition is that we do this in a TIF rebatement. Basically, it's a rebate through TIF or a tax abatement provided through our TIF district, the Westgate Urban Renewal Area. And we'd be doing that over a 10-year period at about $39,000 a year. So the resolution we'll be bringing forward to you in the next meeting is for the application for the tax credits. In lieu of, we can put this stuff in an application that's often done. And so we'll come forward with the resolution that says, contingent upon the gentleman getting the tax credits, that we'll provide, we'll not only pull the property into the TIF district where it doesn't, right now it's contiguous, but it's not in the district. But we'll be agreeing that we'll be pulling that into the urban renewal district if he gets these tax credits, and we'll also be forwarding that 10-year tax, what is called a tax rebatement through TIF. So that's the resolution we'll be bringing forward. The only other part of this that's really not done already is the fact that the property currently is zoned R4, and that's right now the highest in existence scoring that we have or classification we have for zoning in the city. All our most intensive or allowing zoning district currently that exists is the R4, because when we did the rezoning, all the properties that would be maybe in R5 according to density are right now currently in R4 and grandfathered in at that level. But the densities for us on an R3 are no more than 12 per acre, 12 units per acre. And an R4, it only goes up to 17. So in this case, the 539 West 4th is 2.1 acres. So as you can see, 52 units would be a little bit too high density for that. So we're going to bump them up to an R5, and that would allow for 43 units per acre. Now we're kind of looking at this internally because we do feel like that this dispensation is a little small, in the sense that we're not a community that has 10 or 12 R districts. We only have 5. And to go from only 3 per acre on a R3 to 17 only, just 5 more on an R4, and then only 43 on an R5 is a little bit constricting as far as the allowances of the districts go. So we're going to come back with some changes at a later date, but currently we're just going to try to do this rezoning in a kind of an expedited fashion, and that rezoning will be brought forward in your first meeting in November. We're having a special session of the Planning Commission in October 27th. At that time, we'll be making the recommendation to you guys that we rezone the 539 West 4th from R4 to an R5. And of course, at our next meeting, we'll be bringing forth this resolution. So if there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Yes, Mayor, go ahead. Yes, Kevin, and I realize you haven't been with us that long, but I'm a little curious. I thought our low to moderate housing in the city was adequate we were in good shape. So has there been some study to show that, in fact, we need more?
That's actually a good question, because, I mean, at first look, we do have quite a bit of LMI, but we also have quite a bit of proportion amongst our population of low to moderate income. In 2013, that was 44% for our city, which is a large amount. But I mean, throughout the state of Iowa, you're going to see it in the mid to high 30s. But in fact, I heard this from our developer in talking to the state. What he was hearing from the state is the same thing I think a lot of us do realize. About 75% of our housing stock was built before 1930. So if you look at that as a dynamic that is working its way throughout our housing stock, we have a housing stock that in some cases is, I would say, dilapidated. I would say is blighted and is certainly not something that the state feels like that it wants to put, quote, its people in. I think the state communicated to a developer that they had several people that were waiting for housing that they felt like that they were in some cases putting into substandard housing. This is coming from the state. Substandard housing or housing that needed to be improved in so many different ways. And in our own housing study from 2013, it did call for market rate being one of our key sectors. And of course it is. Something we hope to hit on in the near future. But on the flip side of that, it also, you have to look at the LMI. that was in there as well, saying, yes, we could stand more of it. Not only could we stand more of it, but I think our activities when we direct toward market rate housing on the front end, if we do things that are not rebatements that require us to do investments, incentivizing on the front end developments, and market rate, it's going to produce a need for us to have housing set-asides that are proportionate to our LMI proportion, 44%, in other words, around 40%, I would say at this point. So when we do that, those monies have to be spent on low to moderate income. So a lot of our activities on the market rate side and activities like this where we are incentivizing and getting in new low to moderate income developments, you're going to see people move out of this substandard housing in a lot of cases. And what we're talking about are usually houses that are part of bundles that renters, people who rent to others, have had for a very long time. And some of the upkeep of that hasn't been quite what it would have been if it were homeowners. I think we all realize how that works. And so, because it's an expense. And so what you're going to see is a lot of people are going to move to the new housing. And that's going to open up a lot of opportunities over here on the other side of it for people to have home ownership. Because literally, the dearth, the state also said this to our developer, the dearth or lack of a proper amount of LMI has caused for the LMI costs. In other words, affordable home is not what we would call it at this point, when we should be seeing $550, $450 a month. That's because of supply and demand. This is being pushed up to the $650 and $700 perhaps even range.
Okay.
So
if I could interrupt you, Kevin.
Sorry.
You've answered a good part of my question. I get a little concerned sometimes, and as you said, we're already in that 40-some percent.
Yeah.
But you know that build it and they will come. But I like what you said about, and it is true, all the substandard housing that is here. So if in fact it'll replace some of that, I understand the concept. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would also point out, when it comes to, and build it and they will come is something you hear a lot from folks. But I think they are here, we got to build it, maybe more like the way we kind of need to look at it. And if we're going to be a retail leader in the region, the folks that work in the retail market, we want them to live here. Right now, we've got 3,000 to 5,000 people living in other places surrounding us. Could be Ottumwans, but they're not.
I think this is a good start, Kevin. I appreciate you bringing it to the council early, and I'm sure that the Planning and Zoning Commission will thoroughly review the process, and we'll be interested in their recommendation too. So
yeah,
look forward for updates in the future.
Thanks, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, just two other quick items then. First of all, the item you see listed as the number 5 item, the minimum wage increase, that will be a week from this evening. That'll be on the 11th. Now, again, council can correct me if I'm mistaken. There will be no legislative action taken at that meeting. There will be a discussion about the merits and demerits of the minimum wage, and cities essentially have, as we've discussed before, 3 options. One is to stay in and endorse whatever the county supervisors have put forward. The other is to opt out. The third option then is to come up with your own wage. So that's an item that council will obviously having some discussion a week from this evening. And finally, Mayor, the 6th item you see listed here, Partners in Progress, a restructuring. You've been very involved in that, so I would respectfully turn that over to you.
Okay, thank you. Well, we're happy to have Cassandra Halls here tonight to give us an overview. I've talked with the individual council, but we've not had a public discussion of this. And this culminates several months, almost a year of work. And I think it's been a great effort on behalf of the community to think about what we need as a community, not city, not county, not private. And so Cassandra, before I go any further, why don't you introduce yourself to the council and give us some background as you go through some slides for us.
Thank you. And I'd first like to say good evening to Honorable Mayor, City Council, City staff, and the citizens who are here in the room with us tonight, as well as viewing through the television. You are correct. The presentation tonight represents just over a year of planning process to really determine what could be an amazing solution for Ottumwa when it comes to economic development. This process really got started. I'm ready. When the business community raised this particular question. So as I walk through the scenario, I just want you all to envision this with me. But what the question really was, there is a definite need for enhanced and increased economic development in Ottumwa and Wapello County. But if you had the most amazing proposal come to you, where a business had an ability to create a number of jobs, invest in the community, obviously impact the housing issue that you just discussed, would the community of Ottumwa and the county of Wapello be ready for this kind of opportunity? So as I ask you that question, I really want you to respond. So if you think about how processes are today, if we had a $500 million cash investment into Ottumwa or the potential to earn that investment, would we be ready? I see the mayor shaking his head. So this was the question that was actually raised by the business community and some of the other community leaders. And from that, the community organized an advisory committee called Ottumwa First. And we have for you here our mission and vision, and I won't read through this word for word, but essentially the committee came together with representatives from Ottumwa Area Economic Development, the Chamber of Commerce, and Main Street were the initial partners to really ask this question. And then as the initiative grew, there were additional partners that were added to the table, including representatives from the CVB, Convention and Visitors Bureau, the city, as Andy noted earlier, the county, as well as Legacy Foundation. And what the group really wanted to come together and evaluate is the bullet points you see there noted as first. They wanted to take a future forward look at economic development, looking beyond today and opportunity and creating a way that we could increase our responsiveness. They wanted to be inventive. And I think it's really important to call out that inventive was the word that we used, because it was identifying what was most important to Ottumwa and Wapello County and creating a solution around what the needs were here in our community. They wanted to be responsible. Even though Ottumwa is the largest community in Wapello County, we have to be very wise about how we invest our dollars and get the best return from the investment that our business and community are making in our efforts. They also wanted to be strategic and do some planning collectively as a whole, all of these partners together, because obviously there's a lot of work that overlaps. And finally, teamwork was critical. We wanted to bring the teams together so that there was a cohesive, collaborative approach to economic development. So what we've done over the last year is, as I mentioned, we formed the steering committee, and we have spent the last year doing a lot of research on models where other communities within the state of Iowa have come together to really elevate their economic development efforts. We did one-on-one interviews throughout the business community to ask them really open and honest questions about how economic development and other services within the community were working. We did a survey that was wide open to the community. Any person that had an interest in how things were happening in the community of Ottumwa and Wapello County had an opportunity to respond. We also hosted focus groups, which I know a couple of the council members participated in to really discuss the findings from the surveys. And then we also spent time traveling around Iowa, meeting entities that had gone through a similar process to really align the work that they had going on within their communities as well. From all of that research, we designed a solution that we are here to share with you this evening, and are in a process now of making our funding asks to help us support launching this new proposed model. Once we've secured our funding requests and funding is available, then we'll start moving towards implementation. What we found in our research were three themes. Those themes indicated that the community and the business community definitely wanted to see a higher level of collaboration amongst all partners. So even though OEDC, the Chamber of Commerce and Main Street, led this initiative, there was a recognition that there were many other partners like the city of Ottumwa that contribute to all of the efforts happening. There needed to be an increase in the amount of communication shared with the community about what was happening. And then there was also an issue raised around community branding and the feeling that, unfortunately, Ottumwa isn't always held in the most positive light. So how do we fix that? How do we address that and help people understand the wonderful things here to embrace? The strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that you see there were also common themes of the survey that helped us narrow down what the three most identified items were. So here's our recommendation. And before I jump into the recommendation, I would also like to point out that we have several members of our advisory committee who are here tonight to help us, once we get to the end of the presentation, respond to some of your questions. And I'd like to recognize those folks really quickly right now. Brad Little with the Legacy Foundation, David Bradford representing Ottumwa Economic Development, Sharon Stroh as the Executive Director of OEDC, Greg Gardner with Bailey Office Supplies representing OEDC, Matt Thompson with Indian Hills Community College, Fred Zessinger with Main Street Ottumwa, and then Fred Jenkins also representing Main Street Ottumwa this evening. So our proposal that we want to share with you, and I'm going to move from the top down here, recognizing the print on the screen is very small, but you should have a copy in front of you. What we would propose is basically building from the current Partners in Progress structure. And what that means is we would establish an executive board that would have an executive director that would report to that board and help not only guide the work of the existing partners of OEDC, Main Street, and the Chamber, but also take a lead in making sure that strategic priorities for the community are organized and that collaboration is taking place, identifying measurable outcomes of all of those strategic priorities, and then holding those partners accountable for achieving those outcomes. So you will see on the third layer down, all of the entities would remain in existence. OEDC would continue to exist and operate. The Chamber of Commerce, Main Street would all continue to exist. They would all retain their own bylaws. It's just that they would report up through our executive director structure. Each entity would also retain a mini board to help them organize and move their work forward. But what you will see at the bottom there is one of the best parts of this model, which is the partners would work together to actually identify aligned, cohesive, strategic priorities. We've taken the liberty of filling in the boxes. We did a brief survey of all of the partners in the community to see what their areas of focus were right now. And it was very interesting to find that we obviously had multiple partners working on multiple issues, but not doing it together, or together in a sense that could really drive the outcomes like the scenario we shared at the beginning. But the groups would work to identify strategic priorities. We have economic development listed, we have housing, member recruitment and retention, and some others up there. Obviously, those are put in as examples. But then what would happen is those strategic priorities would basically become tables in the community where all of the partners who have a vested interest in that particular topic would come to discuss what you have going on and work together as a team to achieve what the goals are intended for each of those priorities as they're defined. So we can come back to the slide in a few moments. So just a couple of other notes. As we talk about the executive board that the executive director would report to, this isn't fully formed yet. We're still in the process of really defining all of the responsibilities of the executive board. But what we would anticipate is 10 to 13 members, one member from each of the partner organizations, in addition to one member from each funding entity. They would meet monthly to track the progress of all the strategic priorities. They would provide oversight to the executive director and the flow of operations. There would be defined decision-making processes for the executive board. And just as a note that I think is really important, all of the partners and funders, as we transition into this model, are being asked to make a 5-year commitment. And the reason that is because we understand that there's going to be challenges and bumps we face along the way. There's going to be modifications that are likely required to perfect the model. And we don't want anybody to withdraw from this process just because we face a few challenges along the way. So each of our partners, OEDC, the Chamber, and Main Street, have all made this commitment of being part of the process for a minimum of 5 years. In addition to, I have some information I can share about a funder in the future here. So talking about the strategic priorities, I know I gave a really high-level overview, so I'll just touch on this again really briefly. Again, identified by all the partners and the community entities that have an interest, with the goal of having everybody work on the priority together to achieve measurable outcomes and meet the timelines. So as an example, we put together a couple of strategic priorities just to kind of help you wrap your mind around this concept. One of the strategic priorities, membership recruitment and retention. So obviously multiple entities like the Chamber of Commerce and OEDC have a primary goal of adding new members and retaining the members that they currently have. So the goal of the membership recruitment retention strategic priority would be to obviously grow the memberships of the organization. So it makes sense that with both organizations having that as a priority, that they do it together and create strategies so that it's a seamless process. I know many of you belong to businesses or own businesses of your own, and part of what we received in the one-on-one interviews is the number of times you get asked by each organizations for a number of different things. This would be part of streamlining that process. Another sample goal would be to offer additional kinds of business services such as additional lunch and learns, networking opportunities, or events that are a little bit more outside the box. But obviously the groups can do more if they're working together. Then we have some sample action steps that the groups would identify to work on together so they could form one strategy for enhancing membership recruitment and retention. And then obviously it shows what it accomplishes. We also have a second strategic priority, focused around economic development. This one is designed a little bit differently to show you, as I mentioned, the survey that we did of all of our entities within the community. Economic development was a topic that came up over and over again and in lots of different ways. But you can see here, as we've indicated behind each of the goals, there were a number of folks that had an interest in economic development. And these are the current things that are happening in the community right now, but not happening on the same plane. So it was easy to draft some action steps, namely just the first one, putting together a representative team. So a team of representatives from each of the entities to pursue economic development opportunities as a whole, as a community of Ottumwa, as opposed to the city pursuing an opportunity on its own or economic OEDC pursuing an opportunity on its own. And again, looking at what it accomplishes. Thank you. So what does the transition accomplish? There are so many positive things that come from realigning how the organizations work together. But number one, it eliminates the silos. So even though they retain their function, the work of the groups are put together. Another key thing is defined and measurable goals responsive to critical issues. That was another one of the challenges we faced, is that there wasn't enough information in the community, no matter how you put it out there, or how you try and put it out there, without having the measurable goals and them being truly defined. It was difficult for folks to say what the priorities of the community were when it came to economic development. It provides us a process for accountability and a one-stop single point of contact. So it makes it very easy for opportunities to come in the community and know that this is where you start, and that we've built the trust between all of the partners that whatever that opportunity may be, you will be at the table. So we eliminate territories a little bit. Maximize the funding investments, streamlined operations. This model gives us the flexibility to grow and adapt. Obviously, on the org chart, you can see there that there are places reserved for future partners. So if there are other entities within the community that once they see how the success of the model has impacted the other partners, if they want to join the effort, they are welcome to. With the strategic priorities, it also provides us a way for sustainability, because there is a specific capital campaign that will actually fund the strategic priorities. And with the 5-year commitment from each of the partners, it definitely is a commitment to success. So I know that the model will be adapted just as community needs changed and such, but this model has an ability to do that. We did put together a proposed budget just to give you an idea of how we have come to the basis of our asks. Primarily what we need assistance on is funding the role of the executive director and the executive director operations in the first 5 years. We need to have time to organize our capital campaign for the strategic priorities and fund those efforts, which will in turn help us fund our operations once we've completed that capital campaign. You can also see from this model that each of the partners are also making a contribution to the effort. So the OEDC, the Chamber of Commerce, and Main Street will collectively contribute about $28,000 in the first year to help launch the model, in addition to the contributions that we're seeking from our funders. So as we prepared the budget, just a couple of things that I want to point out. The reason that we are making our funding asks is obviously we have limited revenue sources at the beginning to get the model up and off the ground. And in an effort to address that, we have made some significant changes in the existing budgets. For example, we have aligned all of the director salaries and made some significant reductions. We are also evaluating how the financial operations are managed with the partners in progress to see if we can streamline there. And again, if we can add more partners to the effort, then it reduces the overall cost. So our ask to the city of Ottumwa is that we hope you will join us in this effort by making a 5-year commitment and investing in launching this model. What we would hope for is a 5-year commitment with a decreasing contribution by 10% each year, starting with year 1, July 1st of 2017, with the first ask being $40,000, and then obviously drops by 10% each year, with the goal at 5 years the model would be fully sustainable. We are making this ask not only to the city of Ottumwa, but also to the Legacy Foundation and Wapello County. The primary reason that we are coming to those 3 entities in helping us launch the model is because we need the business community to help us fund the strategic priorities. So we want the focus of the investments from the business community to really be in the work that directly impacts all of the different things that are happening. But operations are a challenge to fund, and so we have to find unique partners in this effort that will directly benefit by the success of the model, but have different ways that you can invest. So where we are at in the process, meeting with the city tonight is actually our second funding request. We have already met with Legacy Foundation, and I'll get to that in one moment. We will also meet with the County Board of Supervisors yet this month at their October 18th meeting. We met with the Legacy Foundation at the end of September, and I am pleased to share with you that the Legacy Foundation did approve the 5-year investment into launching the model, with the contingency that the city and county fund at the same levels that they do, which they are opting to fund at the full level that I made in the initial ask. Once the funding is secured, we will finalize the model and then start working towards the process of implementation. So before we move into questions, I just want to leave you with this quote. This was actually something that David Bradford shared with me today, and I thought it really tied everything together in the presentation nicely. It comes from the book QBQ, written by John Miller. With competitors working to beat us every day, can we really afford to be working against each other too? Let's climb out of our silos, forget the we or the they, and remember that we are all on the same team. And that's exactly what this proposal is all about. It's all about putting all of the efforts on the same team to drive results for Ottumwa and Wapello County. So with that, I would welcome your questions.
I would make the comment, first of all, you do have materials in your packet. However, the slides are very small and difficult to read, so we'll get that upgraded so that you can read it easier, and might be helpful to some of us who need to use bifocals now. And I also sent a short communication to the council under Monday that wanted you to at least take a look at this and raise questions for our staff. So are there any immediate questions that you want to generate tonight while Cassandra's here to answer, or members of her team? Mr. Myers.
Not really a question at this point, but I know Mr. Bradford and Mr. Jenkins had done a presentation that I got to set in on it, and we reviewed some of this material. But having been on the council for 11 years, some of the things, and we've had such good volunteers and people on various committees, but to see measurable goals as a goal, to see this collaboration, to see this it's just, those are the types of areas that I think can really help us get things done. So I applaud this effort.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I had just a question. Cassandra, when you were going through the list, and one of the items you mentioned was the sustainability campaign. If my memory serves me, does that, and that's a fundraising mechanism, does that kick in after the end of year 5, or is that occurring while the 5-year term is going?
It's occurring during the 5-year term. So that's why we are able to decrease the ask that we're making for each year by 10%, because there's going to be one significant campaign. The goal with the strategic priorities is, obviously you can see that those are huge priorities. Those are not things that are going to be accomplished in a year's time. Those are going to be priorities for the community that last 2 to 3 years. And so the capital campaign will be designed in a way to do some longer term fundraising instead of trying to operate year to year. And so with that, we'll be able to build the operations into each of those strategic priorities and fund a piece at a time.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
A comment I would make to our council, one of the values that I see in this, and having gone to all but one meeting this year, having an executive board made up of the community members and having an open sharing there gives everybody the chance to be on the same page and present with decisions and ideas. And it would certainly cut down on some staff time, because now we're going to 3 and 4 meetings a month to do those things. And I think this would be really a great way for our volunteers too, because many of them go to multiple meetings too. So I think that executive board is really a key. And then secondly, the issue of the strategic goals. I've been saying to our staff here, we've got to have a unified strategic plan for our community. And this is one way that we can invite everybody to be a part of that and participate. So it's a community plan. It's not an organizational plan. And I just really think that that's an advantage to our city. And certainly, having come back from the League of City meetings, other communities are doing it very much like this. And I appreciate the fact that you went and checked out some best practices from other cities and saw some things in action. If you have any questions, Skip?
I think probably several of us had the same question, and I think I got the answer. If we buy into this and 2 years down the road we think it's a complete flop, do we have a way to opt out?
In the governance documents, there are provisions that we're putting in there for changing the model. So to answer your question directly, yes, there would be a way to opt out. But the challenge that we have, and what we would need commitment from the city council and all of our other partners is that it needs to be something serious, and we're building a process around evaluating how you would withdraw, because we've learned from history. As I mentioned, that this is essentially the model that Partners in Progress proposed initially, and there were some bumps with the first time it was initiated, and everybody walked away from it. And so it's interesting to be back in this position to you saying, we want to try what we tried the first time again, a little bit differently with more defined strategic priorities. But we also need to make sure as partners that we're committed to see it through the challenges that it's going to face in implementation.
Okay. I think in the meeting that I was in with Councilman Dalby, Fred Jenkins, and Frankie, I think it was Fred that said it best. Do we sit here and do nothing and continue on status quo like we've done for years, or do we try something new and try to move forward even better than we are today? So with that, I'm in.
Thank you.
Yeah, Your Honor, I'd like to make a comment.
Go ahead, Matt.
First of all, I'd like to thank the steering committee and Cassandra. I know you've done an awful lot of work. You've been here for quite a while putting this all together. So thank you for your dedication to the cause. And like Skip said, Councilman Stevens said, we sat in on that meeting. And one of the things that struck me, two things that struck me was, number one, you were able to say, hey, we've been here before. It didn't work, but we're willing to come back, put in the effort. and say, hey, it didn't work before, but we're going to, double down, come back and give it more effort. And to have the guts to do that and the seriousness, like you mentioned, speaks volumes. Number two, what struck me too was the fact that you're coming to the city with a buy-in, but that buy-in also puts pretty heavy weight on your shoulders because you have a drawdown of funding from the city. You're saying, we're going to come to you with funding, but over the course of 5 years, you're gonna make that funding, draw down. So that puts the burden on you to be sustainable. So that in my eyes says, you're taking this very serious and you're going to make this thing work. Those two key items in my mind speak volumes. So, we've seen the city with economic development honestly break off and go our own avenue with the Buxton study and do some things because we have seen how important retail recruitment is to Ottumwa, and we've wanted to explore other avenues. So we all know that we can do better. We all know that if we don't, we're going to do our own separate avenues of things, and we all like to kind of keep that collaborate under the umbrella of economic development, and that's what it's all about, keeping these organizations, doing what they're doing, and not to take away from that, the organizations, are doing great, but there's always positive things that come out with an alignment like this. It can only do to serve the public better. So hats off to the committee and stuff. I support it. I know you're serious. I was very skeptical at first. We've been through a lot of different changes. This model has changed over time. I was skeptical at first, but after having that meeting and seeing what you proposed with the buy down and the drawdown of funding from the city and those types of things, I think you're serious, and that's what it took to convince me. So, with what Skip said with the opt-out clause, with that being in place, I'm willing to give it, some time and see where it goes. I think it's necessary. The mayor said, other cities are already doing it, and unless we want everybody to beat us at what we're doing, we got to get on board and go with it. So I'm in. Thank you for your work.
Thank you, Councilman.
Any other comments?
Well, you'll have plenty of time to look at the material that was given to you tonight, and then on the 18th, we'll ask you for your vote, whether we support this or not, and at what level. So you'll have plenty of time to talk to Andy and Joni and myself, and certainly anybody on the committee that you want to. Thank you, Cassandra. Is there any closing comments?
I think in closing, I'd just like to share two things really quickly. I think it's amazing the momentum that Ottumwa has right now going on. You as a community have had some incredibly significant events happen over the last year. So you have great momentum and you have great recognition of your community. And I think investing in a model like this is really the way to continue that momentum moving forward and seize that opportunity. The other thing that I would share for you is just a small piece of conversation we had around one of our last advisory meetings. And we were talking about the strategic priorities and having everybody around the table. And there was one issue that came up that was really telling for how effective this process really will be for your community. And that's the issue of the diversity in your business community and just the community in general was raised. And the question was asked around the table of who owns that? Who should be working on making sure those businesses are integrated into the community, have access to resources and services? And the conversation around the table was that everybody had a piece of it, but it wasn't happening together. And so there wasn't a lot of things that were actually happening. And so the second question as we talked about that issue was who actually owns it and who's going to own it as we move from the table. And the challenge was without everybody working together, it was hard to find time for each entity to be able to actually do things independently. So I think that it was just a very telling conversation and ways that the model can be leveraged additionally. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And thanks for all the committee members who have volunteered and donated so much time, and hasn't always been fun and easy, but I think it's for a very good cause, and we'll look forward to giving you an answer on the 18th. Item 7, which is not on your agenda, and it's just an informational piece. I just want to remind and make the public aware we are going to do an in-service for our department heads and senior staff members on October 13th at the Bridgeview, and the topic of the in-service is making better decisions. We're fortunate to have a world traveler from Hong Kong who is an instructor and teaches this decision-making process all over the world. He's going to be here visiting relatives in the community, and so he graciously offered to do a free gratis in-service for our entire staff, and I'm just really thrilled that we're going to have an opportunity to interact with him and with our staff people to help them understand the behavioral component of how we make decisions. So that'll be on the 13th at Bridgeview, starting at 9 o'clock in the morning. Okay, item E, is there anyone in the audience who wants to address an issue tonight? If you fill out a card and give it to us, or come and identify yourself so we know which issue it is. Go ahead, you can
I don't know how to do it.
just pull that microphone down and give us your name and what item you want to talk about.
My name is Susan Watson, and my question is the quiet zone. I want every one of you guys up there to think very hard about this. I'm serious. How would you guys feel if a train would hit your loved one? This gentleman would have to come to your door and tell you that your loved one was hit by a train. How would he feel? How would the paramedics feel? I can tell you how I feel, because I had it done. It's no pretty sight. I was just a little girl, 4 years old. I feel the money needs to go to the police department for safety, bullet vest, cameras for the fire department. When their house is on fire, they got a camera, they can go in to see if there's anybody in there, get them out for safety. I wonder what you guys think about that.
Well, I think this is not a discussion at this point. You've raised a good point, and I know our departments have asked for money and are getting some new equipment, and there will be more requested this fall for the CIP. And we did just recently get an award from Legacy for the police department on some thermal cameras. We also have some other equipment, vests and so forth that you're asking about. So we are trying to address those things, but it always comes back to how much money we can spend at a given time. So I appreciate your comment. We will take it seriously, and certainly as we go through our budget, we'll look at it.
Yeah, my grandpa was killed on Vine Street.
Okay.
The railing guards was completely malfunctioned, and that's how he got hit. And that engineer never drove again. That's my concern.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for bringing that up. Item F, department recommendations. Amanda?
Ottumwa Public Safety Advisory Board recommendations. Recommendation, approve the Ottumwa Public Safety Advisory Board recommendations.
Your Honor, I would move,
Is there a motion?
yes, Your Honor, I would move to approve the Ottumwa Public Safety Advisory Board recommendations, with the exception of item number 4, which I would like to pull out for separate discussion and vote.
I would second that.
Okay, so let's take care of the motion first, and then we'll talk about item 4. Okay.
Do you want Larry to do a presentation first?
Yes, I think we should have his presentation because that was a very good meeting. Go ahead, Larry.
Thank you, Mayor. City staff discussed the attached request on September 1st and some additional ones on September 9th, 2016. The Ottumwa Public Safety Advisory Board reviewed and approved the attached recommendations on September 26, 2006. The first request was for permission to do overnight parking by residents of downtown Ottumwa from the hours of 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. in the designated time parking spaces of the 2nd Street parking ramp. We reviewed that and denied the request because basically based on the time restrictions that exist in the parking ramp, they can already do that. If residents are looking to utilize the spaces between 5 p.m., they would fall within an hour window before time parking ends, as well as within 2 hours of the morning time from 7 a.m. to 9. So they could already utilize the spaces of unoccupied spaces during that time span. The second item was a request for installation of pedestrian crosswalk on the east side of North Court Street at the intersection of Carter due to a mixed residential and commercial area close to Indian Hills. There is a considerable amount of pedestrian traffic as well as vehicle traffic at this intersection. The recommendation on that request was to deny the request. Constructing a pedestrian crosswalk will not change the fact that vehicles need to yield to pedestrians and remain aware of their surroundings while driving. The third request was to requesting the block of North Green Street from Pennsylvania Avenue to Fillmore Street be restricted to no parking on the east side. Currently, the west side of the street is restricted to no parking, and cars are allowed to park along the east side. But this did cause a line of sight issue as you were traveling up or down North Green Street. The recommendation was to approve a request as modified. The committee recommends installing signs at each end of North Green Street at the intersection of Pennsylvania and North Green, as well as the intersection of Fillmore and North Green Street, that states no parking from here to corner. Currently, our code enforces no parking within 35 feet of an intersection. This is where the signs would be installed, and this should help alleviate the congestion and line of sight issues as vehicles are parking along North Green. Do I skip 4 since it was pulled out and come back?
Yes.
5 was a request to install a 4-way stop at the intersection of Ferry Street and Finley Street to allow for students to cross before and after school. Recommendation is to deny the request. Students need to be reminded to utilize the controlled stop sign intersection and cross appropriately at Chester and Ferry, where crosswalks already exist. Item 6 was a request from the Ottumwa Armory located on 2858 North Court Street that states not a through street and install it at their driveway entrance. The recommendation is to deny this request. This request would be located on private property or government property. It is suggested for the employees of the Armory to finance this request and purchase a sign that states private drive and have it installed at their driveway entrance. 7 was a request to limit the time on-street parking on North Court between 2nd Street and 3rd Street. The recommendation was to approve this request with the change of use in this area from a paid parking to open public parking, post signs to a 2-hour time limit, which is consistent with the rest of the downtown area. The 8th item was a request from the Ottumwa Christian School to reinstall a previously installed crosswalk and children crossing school signs in front of Wildwood School. The recommendation was to approve the reinstallation of the crosswalk and signs at the main entrance of Wildwood School. Ottumwa Christian School will need to staff the crosswalk if a rollout sign is utilized. Considering the circumstances of the Ottumwa Christian School burning and the compressed schedule to open the school on September 12th, and their school burned on August 5th, staff painted the walk on the 14th to create a safe crossing zone.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to approve the report with item number 4 pulled out. Are there any questions about any of the other items for Larry? Hearing none, let's take the roll.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Okay, Matt, you asked for number 4. Do you want some discussion on that? Do you want to make a...
Yeah, well, yeah. The reason I pulled out item number 4 here, and we talked about this, Larry. So just to be clear, we have. I had a question here on item number 4, and now that you've got it in front of you, we had several requests from several individuals here. One of them was requesting an additional crosswalk installed on the corner of Benton Street and Clay Street in the item to be asked for. In the traffic committee recommendations, it says to approve the installation of a school crossing sign at the intersection of those 2 streets, but it says nothing about installing the crosswalk, and I'm assuming that would be a painted crosswalk. And we had discussed this, but I didn't know moving forward with this, the sign was approved, but the crosswalk that had been requested wasn't taken up. I would be in favor of, since the sign was approved, that there would be a painted crosswalk on the street. However, since the committee didn't make a ruling on it, I was wondering if there was any, did they miss that, or did they just not include it in the minutes?
We discussed it and the merits of the location and line of sight, and decided that the best way would be simply to put the signs in to show that there would be a possibility of children crossing at that location. The problem with that particular location is it's on the top of a crown. Part of the request, the original request, was to install a stop sign on Benton if you're northbound. One of the first things that we thought that we should deny, just based on the grade, we've had other intersections in town. If you stop them on that type of grade in the winter, you have a lot of problems. The other part of that original request was to do a crosswalk on Park at Division and forget the other cross street, Highland.
Highland.
Well, it would dump them out to no sidewalks. There's no sidewalks in that area, so you're kind of discouraged from taking them across with nowhere to go. But back to yours, we thought that was a good balance and perhaps would help. And as we discussed, the sidewalk was cleared. There was some bank trees. There were some other issues and concerns with congestion on the existing public walk on Benton from Clay North. Those have been taken care of. When we were working with the school, one of the things that they plan on doing is clearing snow at least up to Clay Street now.
Good. You know, we went out there and looked at that, and there were still some individuals walking in the street as we were there.
Yeah.
And maybe I assume that, and it's just an assumption on my part, that could be because they have been used to walking in the street due to the fact that brush was overgrown on the sidewalk. I just feel, you know, talking to individuals that were, that dealt with this ask, you know, one of them was very appreciative of the sign because that gives the motorists, you know, a visual indicator of that there is a crossing there. Kids would be crossing there. Mm-hmm. There's been some history of them walking down the street due to the fact that sidewalk had been blocked. And then there was some other concern that this crosswalk, if there was a painted crosswalk to go along with the sign, that would be a visual indicator to the students to cross there. And whether or not, since past history, you know, the sidewalk being blocked, that they would actually do that, I don't know. I would just as soon err on the side of safety and have that painted crosswalk there. So unless there's any other discussion, I would go ahead and make a motion to approve item 4 with the addition of a painted crosswalk to go along with those signs that have already been approved.
Okay, Matt's made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
If you put signage there where you're talking about, Larry, does that mean there will be advanced warning signs properly placed both directions, north and south from there?
We'd follow the Mudco manual, whatever it happens to say.
Sorry.
I can't remember what the distance is, but I think there is pre-warning on those.
So you would have advanced warning?
I believe so.
And I would agree with Councilman Dalby on the painting it. I'd go the extra mile myself. I think it's well worth it.
Are there other questions or comments for Larry?
Yeah, I guess I would speak to that. I'm a little curious, Matt or Councilman Dalby, why not send, I'm not privileged to the interactions you've had, but why not send that back to the safety committee for that consideration? As opposed to us doing it, why not send it back to that committee?
Well, we could, and then again, I think it's, you know, at this point it's a legislative decision, and you know, I think they've been very clear with the signage. I think that's a very good decision. I agree with all their other recommendations too that they've come up with. I think, you know, that we've in the past gone with crosswalks. Whenever we see a sign, we associate that with a crosswalk, and at this point, I think it's just okay to go ahead and go with what we've done historically.
So, Larry, did I understand you that there was discussion and it was felt that just the signage was enough?
That's correct.
Any other questions or comments?
I guess I would just mention that after looking at the pictures and driving up there myself, I agree with Councilman Dalby that, you know, the stop sign is good, but having a crosswalk having that painted crosswalk would be a little bit better. You know, when we're talking about children's safety, I would think that, you know, any step that we could take would be for the better.
I agree as well.
Okay, sounds like everybody's had a chance to comment. Motion is to approve item 4 with the addition of the painted crosswalk. Take the roll, please.
Councilmember Myers,
No.
Councilmember Rowe,
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens,
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe,
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Larry.
Award the contract for the 2016 RFP number 11, Woodshire Drive street patching, and authorizing the mayor to sign the contract. Recommendation, award the contract to Turner Concrete Construction in the amount of $19,125.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Go ahead, Larry.
The project will consist of patching existing portions of Woodshire Drive with an 8-inch Portland cement concrete, removal and disposal of approximately 250 square yards of pavement, and placing and finishing approximately 250 square yards of 8-inch PCC. It'll be compacted in 6 inches of compacted 3-inch quarter roadstone and then curb and gutter will be incidental to the pavement. All work shall be completed under the SUDA specifications, and work shall be completed by October 31st. An RFP was let for this work. 2 bids were received and opened on September 21st at 2 p.m. The low bidder for the work was Turner Concrete Construction Inc. of the sum of $19,125.
Any questions for Larry? Larry, would you, I'm sure I can stumble through it, but the SUDAS are the state uniform design and architectural standards?
State urban design and specifications.
Thank you. I just want to comment on that because I think, again, we get questions about why we do some of the things we do, and the city has adopted that process to follow those SUDAS standards, and they're uniform across the state. So we're doing quality work, whether sometimes we get questioned about that. I just want to clarify that. Any other comments for Larry or questions?
Just one quick question. Larry, do you anticipate many change orders with this project, or do you think that this is pretty cut and dry on this?
It's possible depending on the base. Usually what we do is just change the quantity a little bit to stay within the budgeted amount. Of course, when we get into them, we just did some on Fillmore where we got into one area that looks like a utility cut had been made who knows how many years ago. That was extremely soft, and we had to core out about 18 inches. That's always possible on these streets, especially on the north side and the material we have.
Thank you.
Okay, ready to vote? Okay, take the roll, please.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Award the contract for the 2016 RFP number 12, Timberlane Heights Street Patching, and authorizing the mayor to sign the contract. Recommendation, award the contract to Turner Concrete Construction in the amount of $19,125.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Larry, want to make any comments?
This is really almost an identical project, only on a different street. Again, we're targeting 250 square yards of pavement. We're going to do the same thing, remove the existing, put in a 6-inch base, and reinstall 8 inches. We did the same thing, let an RFP for the work. 1 bid was received and opened on the September 21st at 2 p.m. The low bidder for the work was Turner Concrete Construction in the sum of $19,125.
And this work is to be completed in November.
Yeah, by November 9th.
Okay. Any other questions for Larry?
I have one.
Go ahead, Mark.
I'll ask the same question again. Do you think that there's possible that there'll be any change orders on this?
Same answer. You know, anytime we're, especially on the north side, there's so many areas that have expansive clay, depending on how the original bed was prepped, we have that chance of running into it. There are options that you could go in and core and do soil samples and stuff, but you, on a small project where we're just trying to reestablish some of the main panels, you'll spend more money on the geotech services than just patching it and adjusting in the field.
Thank you.
Ready to vote? Take the roll.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Award the contract for the 2016 RFP number 13, Bell Park Storm Sewer Installation, and authorizing the mayor to sign the contract. Recommendation, award the contract to Christie Construction in the amount of $9,381.50.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Larry, go ahead.
This project consists of connecting to an existing storm sewer intake at 21 Schwartz Drive, installing 175 linear feet of 8-inch SDR 35 sewer pipe, including several T's to do subdrains, installing a 24-inch storm intake, including a beehive grate, and then the site restoration. All work shall be completed under the SUDA specifications, and the work shall be completed by October 31st. An RFP was let for this work. 3 bids were received and opened on September 21st at 2 p.m. The low bidder for the work is Christie Construction in the amount of $9,381.50. What we're trying to correct is when that subdivision was built, Bell Park actually sets probably slightly higher than a lot of the homes when they built the homes. So we have about 5 homes that kind of flood in the heavy rain events. What this will allow us to do is regrade a ditch and actually drain that area that's been a troublesome spot for years.
Questions? Go ahead, Mark.
Last time, I promise. Do you think there's a possibility of change orders for this one?
There really shouldn't be. I mean, we do have 3 different utility strings that we have to cross, but there shouldn't be unless we run into some unknown foundation or something underground.
Thank you.
Okay, take the roll, please.
Councilmember Myers.
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens.
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe.
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby.
Yes.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost for Phase 5, Division 3 of the South Ottumwa Sanitary Sewer Separation Project. I received no objections on this item.
Okay, Larry, go ahead. This is a public hearing, so
This is the 3rd phase of the Richmond area and will be generally located in the vicinity of Greenwood Drive, Ferry Street in Ottumwa. The project is listed on the intended use plan with a cost of approximately $1.6 million. The project was identified for a forgivable loan grant, actually $800,000 grant. The city entered into, and this is more of the background, consent order with the Iowa Department of Natural Resources for the purpose of establishing an enforceable schedule and implementing a long-term control plan. This area was listed originally as one project. We've divided Phase 5 up into 3 separate projects. The proposed project consists of lining the remaining sanitary sewer in the Richmond CSO collection basin area. In this basin area, the city has already removed or is in the process of removing the remaining biological load from the Oxbow. This reduction is critical since the Oxbow has a current TMDL designation. We're going to be able to prevent untreated water from being released into the environment and prevent basement backups and reduction of the influence of stormwater on the sanitary system. It really consists of a couple general areas. It's kind of hard to describe without the map, but it really just lines the rest of the lines that go to the Richmond pump station. By doing this, we think we can prevent having to reinstall and increase in the pump capacity at the Richmond station, or at least use the original structure and just increase the pump size. Already did that. So I guess that's the overall project.
okay, since this is a public hearing, if there's anybody in the audience that wants to address this issue, now's the time to step up. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Myers.
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens.
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe.
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby.
Yes.
Resolution number 235, 2016, approving the plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost for Phase 5, Division 3 of the South Ottumwa Sanitary Sewer Separation Project. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 235, 2016.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions for Larry?
I do want to make one correction, Mayor, to this. This is actually 800,000 local funds and 800,000 CDBG funds.
Thank you for that. Okay, with that clarification, ready to vote? Take the roll, please.
Councilmember Myers.
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens.
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe.
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby.
Yes.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost for the Grandview Pump Station Improvements Project. I received no objections on this item.
Good evening, Cam. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This project consists of replacing a section of discharge pipe which goes out from the building at our Grandview Pump Station. The pipe currently leaks inward into the building, but must be replaced before it starts leaking outside into the environment. The gate valves and check valves will be replaced at this time also. Those were installed in 1999. The pump station must remain operable during this construction, so we must do bypass pumping from the wet well directly to the force main. Current engineer's opinion of probable construction cost is $140,000.
Okay. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone that wants to address this item? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Thank you, Vic.
Second.
Thank you, Mark.
Councilmember Myers.
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens.
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe.
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby.
Yes.
Resolution number 240, 2016, approving the plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost for the Grandview Pump Station Improvements Project. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 240, 2016.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Any final questions for Cam? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Myers.
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens.
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe.
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cam.
Resolution number 234, 2016, awarding contract D for the beach renovations Phase 1 project 2016. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 234, 2016.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Good evening, Gene. You have the floor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This project consists of general building repairs and consists of the fourth contract, concluding the bidding of Phase 1 beach renovations. Contract D will address only the items in general building repairs. Improvements include new monolithic mortar flooring system, stairway for the indoor-outdoor slide, service counter rebuild, roof repairs, and associated electrical work. And alternate bid number 1 will be taken for acoustical ceiling system replacement with electrical. Alternate bid number 2 will be taken for aluminum service entrances, insulated glass replacement, and concrete masonry units. Contract A, concrete repairs, B, slide repairs, C, parking lot repairs were let previously and have been awarded according to their bids for a total contracted amount of $450,355. Addendum number 1 to plans and specifications for the beach renovations Phase 1 Contract D 2016 project were distributed to all plan holders as well as those in attendance to the pre-bid meeting held on September 21st, 2016. The following changes are made to the contract documents. Specification section 841.13, aluminum framed entrances and insulated glass, delete pivotal hinges and insert, I'm not sure what that word is.
Butt hinges.
Butt hinges, okay. Plan sheet DO2 under construction plan notes. Note added to number 1 to include monolithic flooring and base for party room. Added to floor plan for the lobby. Construction of this project shall commence October 31st, 2016 and conclude by May 19th, 2017. A pre-bid meeting was held on September 21st, 2016 in the lobby of the Beach Aquatic Center, 101 Church Street, Ottumwa, Iowa, with the following in attendance: Francis Electric, Winger, Pospasol Painting, Christner Contracting, Ridgeway Electric, and Walter A's Logar. Bids were received and opened by the City of Ottumwa on September 28th, 2016 at 2 p.m. 6 sets of plans were mailed and 2 bids were received. The low bidder is Christner Contracting in the amount of $140,824 as the base bid, with alternate number 1 as $27,800 and alternate number 2 at $28,300. Staff recommends awarding the contract to Christner Contracting in the base bid amount of $140,824. Plans and specifications were sent to the following plan contractors: Dodge Reports, Master Builders of Iowa, Walter A's Logar, Von Mann Electric, and Francis Electric. In addition, the plans and specifications were available on the city's website. And you see the bid amounts once again. The engineer's estimate for contract D base bid, $157,300, alternate 1, $21,300, alternate number 2, $48,500.
Okay, thank you, Gene. Is there any questions for Gene on this project? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Myers.
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens.
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe.
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby.
Yes.
Resolution number 237, 2016, approving change order number 1 and accepting the work as final and complete and approving final pay request for the HMA PCC Street Crack Repair Program 2016. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 237, 2016.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Go ahead, Larry.
This project is one of our annual preventative maintenance programs and consists of sealing cracks in both hot mix asphalt and Portland cement concrete pavements. This contract is set up as a unit price contract. Each year we bid a base amount of linear feet and an estimated material cost. As we progress into the project, we adjust areas to maximize linear feet sealed. This is done by extending limits or adding street areas. The process is critical in extending the useful life of the existing HMA or PCC streets. Each year, we budget $50,000 from the expanded street repair program. Change order one includes $523.09 of crack seal work at the airports. Funds for the work will come out of the airport's budget and did not affect the amount done from the street repair program. Unit prices came in below the estimated line item quantities were increased to maximize the number of streets still sealed. And again, the change order amount will increase by $523.09. Christie Construction Company of Ottumwa, Iowa was awarded the project February 16, 2016, and has completed the above reference work according to plans and specifications, and this will authorize payment and release of all retainage.
Any questions for Larry? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Resolution number 238, 2016, approving the final plat of Mercy Clinic Plat 1 of the City of Ottumwa, Wapello County, Iowa. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 238, 2016.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Go ahead, Kevin.
Yes, Your Honor. We're just cleaning up and finishing up our processes on the Mercy Clinic Plat 1 resolution, so I would entertain any questions if any members have them.
And this, you ran this by the planning and zoning?
Yes, I did receive approval from Planning and Zoning, indeed.
Okay.
Ready to go.
Any questions for Kevin? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Resolution number 241, 2016, approving change order number 2 for the Jefferson Street Parking Lot Green Infrastructure Project. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 241, 2016.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Go ahead, Larry.
We're going to give the background on this one because it's a little confusing the way it developed over time. The City Council approved the contract in an amount of $139,966.70 to All Terrain Seating through Resolution 103, 2016 on April 19, 2016 for the Jefferson Street Parking Lot Green Infrastructure Project, which is the Phase 2 of the Jefferson Street Parking Lot Improvement Base Contract. That project consisted of installing approximately 4,600 square feet of permanent pavers and cast unit pavers, limestone block, as well as assorted native planting trees and associated landscaping per drawings and specifications provided by Genus Landscape Architects. The Phase 1 was originally awarded to Turner Concrete Construction on January 6, 2015, and shortly after council approval, the city was made aware of additional community block development funding from the Iowa Economic Development Authority if stormwater best management practices were incorporated into the project. Legacy Foundation hired Genus Landscape Architects to design the improvements. And then due to significant change in the project scope, Legacy and the city determined the project was best suited to bid as a second contract to address the best management practices. This contract was awarded to All Terrain Seating the amount of the $139,966.70. Originally, it was supposed to have a completion date of July 22nd, 2016. Initial expectations were Turner and All Terrain would work at the site at the same time. Unfortunately, All Terrain could not perform much of their work until Turner completed a significant portion of their work. Change order 1, which was approved back in July, was for $5,991.60 to the contract for work items directed by Genus. This change order 2 extends the completion date to October 7th and includes additional work items directed by Genus Landscape Architect. One of the things that needs pointed out for this contract, Legacy Foundation allocated for up to $475,000 for their share of the improvements, and CDBG allocated $285,000 for construction and another $15,000 for CDB management. With all the contract increases and additions, we're at $636,776.40 with a funding level of $760,000. And then we broke out the change order where you can see what each item was for.
Are there any questions for Larry about this? This has been a long, drawn-out affair, and I'm glad to see it coming to fruition.
Substantial completion is for this Friday, so it's starting to look very, very good. A little bit of sodding left to do.
Any comments? Okay, ready to vote? Take the roll, please.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
I'll move down to item K. Is there anybody in the audience that wants to address anything not on the agenda tonight? I think we've already had that. A couple of comments. First of all, I'd like to thank the entire city staff for a great Oktoberfest parade and party in the Jimmy Jones shelter, and certainly thank the fellows that did some cleaning up before the party started. I think we also want to give a great round of applause and support to the camp hostess. They have really worked their tail off this year with Ragbri and the World Series, and then Oktoberfest, and now with Gene, didn't you tell me there were 125 pipe fitters in the campground? And that just means extra work. We normally would have closed our campground by now, so I think, again, those folks have done a great job. We also want to make people aware of October 15th. That's a Saturday. There's going to be a food truck frenzy on the Market Street Bridge starting at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They're bringing in a number of food trucks from outside of the area, and I understand there'll be at least one band, if not a couple of bands. And that's all done by KYOU and KIIC. And then lastly, this morning I had the opportunity to meet with a group of folks who are working with the disability in our community. I did sign a proclamation on their behalf. It was a great group of private and public people who really help disadvantaged people. And I think the one thing that I took away from the meeting is that this group represents a lot of disability services, but one of the women made the comment that the emphasis is on their ability, the things they bring to the workplace and to our community. And so I think, again, it was a great opportunity just to network with some of those folks, and they do a tremendous service in our community and in the whole Southeast Iowa. Is there any other comment or questions for the council, or any other items you want us to think about? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion for adjournment.
So move.
Second.
Thank you, Skip. Thank you, Vic.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Thank you all, and good night. Do you want me to give this to you, and would you make some?
Stole my card. And I will bring it back to you tomorrow, but I want to put it in my packet.
Okay.
Of course.
I mean,
I have
compared
it.
to the one that I got off. I couldn't.